All right, we are live. What's up, y'all? My name is Amir Zen, and today we are going to be having a very interesting and informative conversation. We are joined by Jacob Yunus and Fadi Malkosh, who both have very unique perspectives on America, Israel, Palestine, U.S. foreign policy, and we are going to be talking about a new Republican bill that has been proposed to expel and block Palestinians from the United States. So, Jacob, Fadi, how y'all doing tonight?
Doing great. How about yourself?
Doing good.
I am doing fantastic. Thank you all for joining. If you are watching this now and tuning in, leave your comments down below. Let us know what you think, and we are going to be here chatting for a good minute tonight about this new Republican bill to expel and block Palestinians from America. And we're also going to be talking about what's going on over there in the Middle East right now as well. Because if you've been paying attention to the world the last few weeks, you'll see that the World War III propaganda is blaring up once again. And we are here tonight to give you all some education so that we can potentially have peaceful outcomes instead of World War III. What do y'all think about that, Jacob?
I mean, in a perfect world, what we can do would make a change in the outcome. But I think we're just going to have a nice discussion, share some views. I think it was a little bit of a shocker, really, to see American media go as far as saying expelling any Palestinians from coming into the United States. That, to me, is just further dehumanizes who the Palestinian people are. It's been obvious that that's been a little bit of the agenda the last few weeks. It's really sad as a Palestinian American Christian living in California, Los Angeles. I'm a mile and a half from the beach, probably the best place to be, arguably. And, to see this beautiful country say, this democracy, just say flat out, we're going to stop people from entering. It's just crazy to me, with our southern border wide open for anyone just to come in kind of undocumented. It's just, doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah, before we continue on that as well, it's important to note before we continue that Jacob is an American from Palestinian Christian descent, and Fadi is an American that has Jordanian and Circassian descent.
Circassian, but grew up in Jordan. And big shout out to Janelle. Janelle, it's been years. Hit me up. Hope you're well. Good to hear you. Good to see you here. So if you all have questions, leave them in the comments. We're going to be talking about Israel and Palestine, U.S. foreign policy, and I just wanted to give you a little background about the two awesome gentlemen joining us tonight, Jacob and Fadi, because their families have been very directly affected by the Israel and Palestine conflict. My family is of Iranian descent, and that's where I'm an American of Iranian descent, and this conflict has clearly affected Iranians all across the world as well. But you two guys, being from that exact area, or having, your ancestors coming from that exact area, have a direct view of what's going on there. We were just talking about Jordan before we hopped on, and as you see, Jordan has become a country where so many different refugees go to over the last few decades, right? So Fadi, can you tell me a little bit about that Jordanian experience? You know, like, why are people in Jordan? Because on the American media today, right, we're seeing it completely repeated over and over and over and over. Why don't countries like Jordan take in these refugees?
It's
Where I'm saying they've been taking millions of refugees in for a long time now, right?
yeah. So for the folks that aren't really too familiar with the region, it's comical to see the milk toast. It's just a watered down analysis that comes out of our medias, in the mainstream and the Western media. The geopolitical, even though it's such a fascinating topic, like all atrocities aside, obviously, it's such a fascinating topic, and because it's so, I mean, this event is affecting the entire globe. There's so much at stake. There's so much going on, um, and nobody's getting it. Everyone's just like in America, they're trying to make them all just focus on it's just Palestine versus Israel, and we're kind of working on both sides, right? But this is affecting the globe. Like China's in this, North Korea's in this, Russia's in this. You've got the entire. This could be a regional. I mean, there's a lot of things happening, but we get this like really shallow reporting on what's happening. So, like for example, people that grew up in Jordan, you know, in the '90s, already the 70% of the population was Palestinian. I mean, Jacob would know, right? You have your family there. There's a lot of Palestinians in Jordan, and recently, just I'll finish on this. There's so many refugees there already, and from between the year 1990 and right now, the population of Jordan went from like 3.4 million to 10 million, most of which are refugees from all over the place. So that's one. But more importantly, why would the Palestinians leave? They don't want to leave. That's the whole point. They're not trying to leave anyway. So even if Jordan said, all you guys can come on in.
They're not.
Yeah, and Fadi, we're hearing that feedback coming from your thing. If you could fix it right now. But I wanted to first, before we continue on, talk a little bit about this new bill that has been introduced. I'm just going to read a little bit about it. I just saw it pop up recently, so it seemed like before the weekend, these politicians decided to write this bill. And, you know, all three of us being Republicans, we're seeing this neocon Republican Party still dominant. And our goal is to see the heart of the Republican Party shift and evolve into more freedom, because this shit ain't it. So this article is from the New Republic. It says House Republicans introduce bill to expel Palestinians from the country. And it says House Republicans have come up with yet another plan to kick brown people out of the country. On Thursday, Representatives Ryan Zink introduced a bill that would revoke the visas and refugee status of a number of Palestinians. So it's important to note that when these bans happen, they're usually not saying, you know, like, Jacob, you need to leave the country or something. It's a very specific, but the point is that they get this clickbait bill now that is going to either get people supporting them more, or the exact opposite, which is seemingly happening more and more and more with this conflict. And this article says the Safeguarding Americans from Extremism Act would require the Department of Homeland Security to refrain from issuing visas or granting refugee, asylum, or temporary protected status to anyone holding a passport issued by the Palestinian Authority. It would also revoke visas and refugee or asylum status for anyone who was granted it on or after October 1st. The bill also directly orders Immigration and Customs Enforcement, that's ICE, to remove those who lose their lawful status in the country under the new criteria. This is the most anti-Hamas immigration legislation I have seen, and it's well-deserved, Zink said in a statement that conflated all Palestinians with Hamas. So before we continue on there, Jacob, you just heard me say Palestinian Authority, and then you just heard me say Hamas. Can you break down the differences here of how dumb this all just sounded?
Yeah, well, Hamas is not the Palestinian Authority. That's what the U.S. and Western media tries to paint. And if you ask your average American who the Palestinian Authority is, I'm willing to bet they're going to tell you Hamas, right? But that's not the case. And the media trying to associate the entire Palestinian people under the umbrella of Hamas and labeling basically everybody a terrorist is just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, this country is supposed to be for anyone to come in legally. I'm all for anyone coming into this country and doing it the legal right way. I'm definitely against these illegal aliens coming down from our southern border undocumented. We don't know what's coming from down there, right? So to keep that open and operating the way it is on our southern border with people coming in, and to do this to the Palestinians as a whole, because to me, they're not doing this to keep Hamas terrorists out. This is just another way to label all Palestinians as terrorists and to further dehumanize us. There's an agenda. I mean, you always got to question the narrative. That's one thing, COVID taught us, is to question what's going on, right?
Well, it seems like a lot of people on the right a few weeks ago stopped with that questioning mindset, right?
It's weird, isn't it? We were all about questioning the narrative and everything. And the second this October 7th comes around, it's like everyone is glued to Fox and CNN, and they're taking it in straight to the bank. It makes no sense to me.
The normies are so dumb, bro. That's what it is. It's like you go from the COVID to the Ukraine. Like it's the same as Here's a question for all those folks. Remember when the right was like super anti going to war with Ukraine, and how then media and the politicians were telling you this is standing between us and the end of democracy, that Ukraine was that important. And then now all of a sudden they shift to Israel, and it's like, hey, you guys should probably negotiate some peace with Russia and figure it out. And it's the same thing. And just like you guys are saying, people are just like, oh, did you see this? And they're all about, October 7th. But I think that this time around, their narrative ain't working. It's the veterans aren't going to want to go to war. You're seeing the discourse on Twitter. You got people like Jake Shields, people like Lucas Gage.
Yeah, Jake Shields, who was just demonetized actually on Twitter, on X.
Yeah, they're demonetizing them. And by the way, so Jacob, to your point, they want to expel and not allow anybody from Palestine in, but they just literally made an open visa status for Israelis. So Israelis get to just, if they want to come in, they can come in no matter what. Why isn't that extended to the Palestinians, who actually probably need it more, I would say? I mean, I'm obviously biased, but there can only be one truth regardless.
There are Palestinian Israelis too that hold Israeli passports that will probably be able to come and go as they please.
Yeah.
They exist.
Yeah. I mean, I can't say I'm surprised by what the media is saying, and this is expected. Anybody that grew up overseas know that, when it comes to the U.S., Israel has got an incredible amount of power. And according to everybody there, according to the AIPAC, they admit it and everything. So the silver lining in all of this tragedy and everything that's happening is that this single event has literally unified so many people from so many different factions. When did you think you would see the National Socialists unify with the LGBT community and Antifa? peace brings everybody together, and everybody knows who the oppressors are. And so even the Christian nationalists, a lot of them they're so awake to the whole Zionist agenda. I mean, there's churches starting to push back on this idea. So this has really rekindled the Palestinian situation from scratch. It's unified all the Islamic community, all the Arab community, all the people of the world are standing up. So
I'm all for the unity. Here in the United States, I don't want to get things mixed up, and you'll hear it out there. As a Palestinian, uh, having your people go through this for so long.
Yeah, and Jacob, before we continue, can you give a little background about where your family's from and when they came to America? And if you're watching this right now and you want to go hear way more in depth with what Jacob is about to say now, you can go watch the live stream that we did earlier this week together, where he goes into detail. But if you could just give a quick background, Jacob, before you continue.
So we're from a small Christian village called Taiba in Ramallah, in the West Bank of Palestine, the occupied territories. It's some of the last pure Palestinian land that is left, and settlers are literally moving in. They're within. I have relatives that can go outside their backyard and see settlers from across the hill, just taking over villages. So it is,
and that the settlers. So you're saying the Zionist settlers who are illegally encroaching deeper and deeper into
correct.
the West Bank, including your family's ancestral homeland where they still live today. But what you're saying is that if they keep encroaching, then they're getting very close to taking over the land that your family lives on, right?
Correct, and it's a lot. Taiba is a small Christian village. Everybody knows everybody. Literally, it's a very tight knit community. Even here in Los Angeles, a lot of the Christian Palestinians migrated here. We have a pretty tight knit community here. People don't even know that Palestinian Christians exist, but they'd be surprised how big the community is in Los Angeles alone. I mean, in the United States, we have it's called the UTAA. It's the United Taiba American Association, and it is a association of Palestinian American Christians. We meet every year. We discuss our position here in the country, our positions back home, how different ways we can help the community, both here and back home. It's a very, very cool organization. I hope to get one of the board members on this podcast, on this YouTube live pretty soon, and to discuss that even further. But yeah, our roots run deep in Palestine, very deep.
And to make it clear, there wouldn't be so many of those Palestinians here, most likely, had they not been ethnically cleansed off of their land, right?
Put it this way: if my grandpa still had all his land that he had, if it wasn't illegally stolen by Israel, by Zionist Israel, I'd probably be back there chilling on the Mediterranean, retired. And
when you say illegally stolen, let's paint a picture here for anybody who's listening to this, because unless you really know what's going on there on the ground, to get a picture in your head as an American is very hard to understand when you just say somebody came to my house and stole it and kicked me out. And then the government protected them because they are that religion and I'm not that religion. So paint that picture for us.
Well, basically you could have the deed and the keys, and your family could live in that house for generations. And if the Jewish Zionist associations that work there, they work with other countries like the United States, along with like kind of like the Jewish Birthright, where they bring people in, move them into certain neighborhoods to strengthen the Zionist presence, and they move one house after another. They literally give you a time frame to either vacate your home or they'll demolish it, and it'll be on your expense. You'd have to show up.
Can you talk about that? When they do come and oppress you, they send you the bill.
Correct. If you'd have to either demolish it yourself, and most of the Palestinians do it by hand. They just get like a sledgehammer, and they just literally have to start breaking down your own walls. And if you don't do it, the Israeli government will do it, and then they will literally send you the bill. It's some of the, and how this country still calls itself a democracy. There's people that would defend that.
They're completely violating private property rights. Fadi, you're having that background noise happening again. So what you're saying is that they're essentially this democracy that completely violates private property rights, which is one of the basis of what makes America as awesome as America is, our adherence to private property rights comparatively. So what you're saying is that they're not respecting private property rights at all.
At all. There is a Palestinian tour guide in Jerusalem. This guy brings tours into the old city, and he takes them around the town and tells them the history and the beautiful culture of the Palestinian people. And his family home is actually there. Okay. And his home was stolen by Israeli settlers. And what happened was he was doing a tour. He was working. He had about, I'd say, 15 people on a small tour. He stopped in front of his house, and he shed some light on that to all foreigners. And he's like, guys, this is my house that was illegally taken by this gentleman right here. The guy happened to be at the doorstep, by the way. It was perfect. Somebody had him on camera, and he just said that I've been here for 5 generations, and my mother and my elderly father were kicked out and illegally taken by a Zionist company that brings in someone to basically take your place. And they'll even keep your couches and all your stuff. They'll take all that. I mean, they'll use that. It's theirs now. It's disgusting. Like, they didn't even throw out the dude's couches and stuff. They just used it.
It's absolutely unacceptable in America, right?
Crazy.
So I actually want to read this comment from Jonelle West Coast. Says this is a really good point, because y'all brought up earlier about the Palestinian Israelis who have the Israeli citizenships. So this comment says, my cousins in Israel who are Palestinian Christians actually has to have visas, but now that it's open visas for Israelis, they mark the Palestinian ones differently, so it's not an open visa for them. Wow.
Whoa.
You know, when you all said that earlier, I thought that might be the case, but I didn't want to say it because I couldn't verify it. But just knowing how the Israeli government works, and we just got it verified from somebody on the ground with an Israeli citizenship right here, that it's Israeli Jew, not if you're not Jewish, then you get a mark still, and you don't get those same rights. Wow, that is disgusting.
Very.
Fadi.
It's sad for the Palestinians on that side.
I was gonna say. Go ahead.
Way. They still got to live in a certain way there, even as Israelis. And I refer to them as Palestinians on the other side. I do know a few personally, great people. It's not their fault they're born where they were born, right? And some of these people pursue careers and lives on the other side, and they have to still live in a certain way. You can't speak out on Free Palestine on that
Right.
side.
If you get an Israeli citizenship and you decide to be a Palestine activist, you're going to get your
You're done.
citizenship revoked, right?
You could lose your career. I mean, I think I just heard there was an attorney there that spoke up, and her credentials are no longer valid.
I heard about that. I heard about that as well. Yeah. So the cancel culture that you see here against people who speak out on this topic, the same thing happens over there. It's just over there, it's such a smaller group. Hey Fadi, where did you go over there on the
This phone died. God, I gotta
lost you on the
Are you still able to hear the mic?
Yeah, we can hear
What's
you.
up,
Yeah.
guys?
Okay.
Emil,
Yeah, let me just I'm gonna go. My phone
Cole's
died.
in the
It's
house.
OG, I gotta replug it.
Johnny,
Yep, go ahead. Tell me when you're there. We'll switch over
Viva
to
Palestina. What's up, Johnny?
boom. Hey, so yeah, let's read some of these comments right now. Actually, we got a lot of people joining us in the chats right now. Somebody asked earlier, Jacob, you brought up the border. They said, what is going on at the border? Can you explain what's going on at the border right now?
Which border? Our southern border here in the United States?
I think that's, yeah.
I mean, does the person live under a rock? How do you not know what's going on at the border? Jesus. It's really anything. Everyone's just coming through that. We had a record in September. I don't know how many thousand. It was like close to like 300,000 undocumented, military age men. Most of them came across our border illegally, and that's not okay. I mean, we have hundreds of thousands of people coming across through our Mexico border, all across our southern border, in the United States.
Yeah. So since Biden's been president, there have been millions of people that have come in illegally, just walk across the border.
Literally, I saw a video the other day. I think they put up a fence. They fixed a fence somewhere, and these people couldn't get through. So the United States came and brought a bulldozer and like picked up the fence for them. Like we're allowing this to happen. We're filling up the streets.
Do you think it's by design, Jacob?
I believe so. I mean, there's no way else to look at it. We're literally the United States, the toughest country in the world, is letting undocumented people come into our country on foot. Just think about that. And they're coming in by the hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, and we're not just talking about, people from Mexico, South America, Central America, these areas. We're talking about people will take a plane to some country south of America and then just walk on up knowing that they can just walk through and seek asylum.
Yeah, it's scary, knowing you want to raise your kids here and what's going to happen with it within the future, 20, 30 years from now. How is this country going to be? Is it going to be the same way I grew up? Are my kids going to have the same lifestyle I did? Is America going to be the same way it was in the 90s when it was just, ice cream trucks and Happy Meals, dude? Like, that's all. That's how I enjoyed America growing up, and it's sad to see that all this is in question now. We have to think about these things. And yeah, to that person that doesn't know what's going on our southern border, I think you should do a little research.
Now you know. Yeah, I'm glad people tune in so we can share with you angles on these topics that you're probably not going to be hearing on the mainstream networks. What's up, Fadi? We see you back in here. Gonna have you join the Instagram.
My circadian brother is in the house.
Hey,
let's go.
Is the audio good, or is it still?
It's a little better. It's a little better. Actually, before we continue, Jacob, let's just we're gonna take a little break here. If you're listening right now, this is a quick commercial break from our sponsor of tonight's live stream, which is myself and my company Specker. You can check out Specker at speckerhealth.com and reclaim your health with some awesome products that I personally formulate myself. So check out speckerhealth.com, and you can go to speckerhealth.com. In the description of this video, there's a link right down below. So check out speckerhealth.com. Take the new Specker Health Assessment. Check out the Specker Library and check out some awesome products. So I'm going to take some Specker energy right now before we continue, gentlemen. All right, let's go. And actually, Jacob Eunice actually has a pretty awesome business as well. What is that, Jacob?
Jacob, people know me as Jacob the Jeweler. I can make any piece of jewelry that you desire. You put your mind to it, we can make it. I specialize in engagement and bridal. I'm a diamond tier originally, graduate of GIA, Gemological Institute of America. And I've been doing jewelry for about 10 years now. It's been a nice ride. Very thankful for it. And if anyone needs anything, you know where to reach me.
Yep, and Jacob's information will also be in the description of this video too, so you can check him out and connect. And also we have the wonderful Fadi of the legendary Network Radio and streaming on Network Radio as well right now on the YouTube channel. And Fadi, let the people know where they could find you at Network Radio.
Yeah, thank you. Typically,
we got the problem again, Fadi. Well, I'll have to tell you while Fadi fixes that audio problem he's having. You can check out Fadi at networkradio.us now is what he goes with now. And on Network Radio, you can check out Fadi's show called Anarcho, Network Radio Anarcho. And also Fadi is the producer of a show called The Two Mics. And you can check those out at networkradio.us. Fadi, you still got that horrible sound in the background?
Can you hear me right now or no?
Let's go. We are good for right now, for right this moment. Hey, if you're watching on Instagram right now, move on over to YouTube and Rumble. We're going to get cut off from there eventually. And also leave your comments down below. We're going to read them. Let's read.
How's the audio now? I'm here.
Just a little echo, but it sounds pretty all right. We got Ordinary P here. He says, didn't Israel have one of the most strict COVID rules and mandates with masks and passports and jabs? The writing was on the wall for what is going on. Jacob, do you know anything about that? Did you hear anything about that from the Palestinian side? Because I know that when all that vaccine stuff was happening, they were forcing all the Israelis to get it, and they were keeping it and making it harder for the Palestinians to get it. Is that right?
Oh, they couldn't get it for a while. Yeah, they couldn't get it for a while. But that's all I know.
Yeah, like they blocked it from getting into Gaza for a long time, right?
Correct. I do remember that. That's pretty much all I know about that. I don't really know what was really going on the other side.
Yeah, Israel had arguably some of the strictest COVID lockdown mandate rules and stuff out of anybody. Oh shit. Fadi, can you turn down volume on your side all the way? Yeah, they mandated multiple jabs. It was not pleasurable. And I did see some videos from Israelis who were fighting against the mandates, and these were Jewish people in Israel, and talking about how bad their lives got fucked up as a result. And something that's really important to mention is that Israel isn't this unified state. Israel is very politically divided, just like America is. So, the Benjamin Netanyahu that you're seeing that's running the government right now, there's a lot of resistance to his party and their rules. So, Righteous Boy says, I heard they got fake injections. Well, I guess they got lucky, right?
I'll tell you one thing that's interesting. if you take a look at the actual COVID, and this is something that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. got in trouble for, it affects different ethnicities in different ways. And one interesting part is Ashkenazi Jews, and this is according to a study, which I'll get the link for, like an actual study, are affected the least by COVID-19.
Yeah, so that's
look it up. It's an actual research study that was conducted. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. talked about it, and he got in a lot of trouble for that. So
I remember when he talked about that, and then people were saying like he's an anti-Semite.
Yeah.
And, but now he clearly redeemed himself, proving that he is a hardcore Zionist shill and will bend the knee whenever
he got the call.
They ask him to, right?
He got the call, man. And
yeah, he got the call. Yeah. Hey, y'all. Jacob and Fadi, if you guys could go retweet the Twitter live stream that we have right now. It's in the chat.
How many live streams are we on, brother?
Bro, all right. So if you're watching this right now, you might be watching this on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram. I don't know. We're streaming everywhere, but my main focus on streaming right now is Rumble and Twitter, because those are the places that for right now, we can speak the freest out of other platforms. So, going back to that that article that I was reading earlier, I just wanted to finish it off a little to continue talking a little bit about this this new House Republicans introduced bill to expel Palestinians from the country, which is one hell of a clickbait. If you think about it, this guy, this congressman that introduced this bill, now he can go to his Zionist donors and be like, look what I did, give me some more money. And, so these bills are probably not going to pass. But the fact that they put it out, then they get to say, hey, look at this bill I put into Congress, I support y'all. So what it says here, we stopped off when they brought up Zink said in a statement that conflated all Palestinians with Hamas, and they bring up the Palestinian Authority, Hamas. They're different governments in different areas of Palestine. So it says, as a justification for this racist immigration overhaul, Zink in a press release quoted articles from as far back as 2019 that have nothing to do with the Palestinians or even threats to America, as well as articles from conservative outlets, the Daily Mail and Fox News. Wait, the Daily Mail is a conservative outlet? All right, I didn't know that until right now. Did you guys know that the Daily Mail was considered a conservative outlet? Did you all? What?
The Daily Mail is like the TMZ for politics.
I know. It's like, what? All right. So it says the radical bill is co-sponsored by far-right members of Congress like Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm going to read her tweet actually right now because it just said her name. It's the stupidest thing I've read. Who this week led a failed attempt to censure the only Palestinian American member of Congress. What's her name? Rashida Tlaib? Is that her? Yeah. Other co-sponsors include Republican Representatives Andy Biggs, Aaron Bean, Andy Harris, Scott DeJarle, Clay Higgins, Ronnie Jackson, Barry Moore, Ralph Norman, and Bill Posey. These are the other Republicans who co-sponsored this bill with Zink. So I guess we can ask ourselves, what does Epstein's friends have on these guys, huh?
You know what? It's interesting. October 7th, the first thing that Andrew Torba posted was that this is going to be a big mask off moment for everybody. And anybody who follows Torba, he's the owner of Gab, founder of Gab. He's very Christian, very, very Christian. And October 7th, you just open up any Twitter account of any politician, any social media, every single one of them, from the Carrie Lakes of the world to Josh Hawley's of the world to you name it. Every
pseudo woke Republican that you thought during COVID times was all about freedom, right?
Yeah, the ones that were just not really saying much, because for a while, look, the base is not boomer anymore. They're not They're not so pro-Israel, unconditionally neoconservative. They're not neocons as much as they used to be. The platform changed. The MAGA base changed. You can see it in the comments. You can see it everywhere. The right is no longer so pro-Zionist. It's not even close. And the politicians, for whatever reason, they don't see that, or they refuse to see that, and it's backfiring. You take a look at everything they're posting on their Twitter accounts. Everybody's getting ratioed. You know, Jordan Peterson. Everybody, Matt Walsh, just go read the comments.
The truth is prevailing, right?
Yeah, they're getting ratioed, and they're scared. And so they're trying really hard. And this time around, the difference is, see, the Muslims were put in this category.
Fadi, you said, sorry, you said ratioed. Can you explain what being ratioed means? Because if you're not in the Twitterverse, it's not really like a thing outside of social media that I hear.
Ratioed is like, it's basically when you make a post and you have more people attacking your post than you, like by a big margin, and it just backfires instead of people supporting you. So, for example, Jordan Peterson, who has this cult following, or what used to be a cult following, got exposed big time due to especially his bootlicking of Israel. This guy starts crying the whole time. You know, he's got all these drug problems that he was wanting everybody to clean their room first. But anyways, he came out.
We were talking about what a socialist he was, Fadi, like last month together when we were streaming, remember?
Yeah, he's definitely but he came out, and on October 7th, he said that, you know, if I'm paraphrasing, but enough is enough. At Netanyahu, he tags Netanyahu and he goes, "Give him hell." And man, that didn't age well at all. And he's getting ratioed. Actually, his nickname, I love the internet. His nickname is Juden Peterstein. It's no longer Jordan Peterson. That was before October 7th, but it's been exacerbated. And these people are getting ratioed. And that was a mask-off moment. Everybody was like, oh no, AIPAC is still in control. You know, when AIPAC makes a tweet and it says 95% of the people we endorse end up getting elected, like, that's a pretty high margin, bro. That's like a high margin.
You're saying you're not controlling the narrative?
Yeah. You know? I don't know. We know we got to get the OIV committee to weigh in on this. So, and they get both sides. But here's the difference. This war, this time around, it is no longer country versus country as much as it is the people versus their own government. Because you take a look around the globe, you take a poll, how many people feel like they're being represented, whether it's left or the right? Nobody feels represented, man. Everybody sees the corruption. It's at a different level than it's ever been. And I think that's coming to a head. I think the next world war, it might be triggered by these little events or these regional events. But I have the humble opinion, obviously, that the next world war is going to turn more into the people versus their governments, more so than countries versus countries.
Yeah, there's actually a thought that if a third world war does pop off, Americans would respond by taking the fight or bringing the fight here at home and not getting fooled to go die in some far off land for some fucking pedo politician, you know?
Yeah, and that's the other part, is this pedophilia. It's like, it's not like a big secret anymore, you know? And, you know, when Ghislaine Maxwell gets, you know, found guilty, nobody's going after her clients. And they have a list of her clients. Oh, and by the way, it's all there. Like,
do you know, Fadi, do you know about the Blinken connection to Maxwell?
Yes, I think his dad.
Bring that up, bro. Talk about that right now, please.
So I Anthony, and I'm going to butcher this because I've read it a while ago and I didn't really look too deep into it. But Anthony Blinken's father, I believe, was Ghislaine Maxwell's father's lawyer, who's Robert Maxwell. And I think his grandfather, Blinken's grandfather, was one of the founders of Israel or something like that too.
So, okay, so I'll read. Right? Jake Shields actually just posted about this as well.
Powerful shout out to Jake Shields, by the way.
Yeah, man. You know, Jake Shields,
holding it down.
At California, he's a California man as well. He's on the right in California, and it just shows that California is really not a lost cause. There is a lot more resistance here against communism than people would otherwise think. So his post says, Anthony Blinken is Secretary of State, but with Biden being incompetent, that means he is the man running America. Blinken's stepfather was the lawyer for Robert Maxwell. That's Ghislaine Maxwell's dad.
who was
Mossad
a
agent.
top spy for Mossad. His daughter, Ghislaine Maxwell, was Jeffrey Epstein's partner in his blackmail operation for Mossad.
Groomer.
Too many weird connections.
Yeah. Epstein just seems to be connected to all. Epstein, in his safe, he also had a passport, a Saudi Arabian passport, which is something that nobody talks about. How did you get this? Why do you have a Saudi Arabian passport?
You know how
Wait,
hard it is
Epstein
to
had a
get a
Saudi
Saudi
passport?
Arabian passport?
Wait, you're saying Epstein? Did you just say Epstein had a Saudi passport?
Jeffrey Epstein had a Saudi passport in his safe.
I
yes.
don't know how hard it is to get a Saudi passport, but I can imagine as a Jewish man, it might not be.
Any Emirati passport is extremely hard to get. I was born in Qatar, and I can't even apply for a Qatari passport.
Damn, that's wild. Yeah, these
I was
connections.
born in
bro.
their capital.
Wait, why? Why is that? What is that law? Can you explain it a little?
You're at the end of the day, you're not Qatari. You were just born there.
Yeah, I think. Hey, isn't like sometimes, and I could be
They
wrong,
go
bro,
off
but
your
what?
blood.
Because in Jordan, some Palestinians who were, I think, maybe they're not legal citizens, but they had these red passports instead, right? Palestinians in Jordan.
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, I need someone to clear that up from someone that lives there. But I remember when I was younger, like, yeah, the Palestinians had a separate passport than the Jordanians. Not all of them. I think the ones that were maybe in refugee camps or something, they had a different passport. So look, other countries are not like the US.
I could just add on a little bit on that. Is that when those Palestinian refugees go to Jordan, it takes some time when they're refugees in other countries as well. It takes time for them to get citizenship. Oftentimes, a country won't give them citizenship. Jordan is not one of those countries. Jordan does have a pathway to citizenship. But that being said, that doesn't mean that everybody that's there is immediately going and getting a citizenship. So if you're a Palestinian, you're technically stateless if you're in Palestine. And then if you go over to somewhere like Jordan or Egypt, you're technically still not part of their government until you have that paperwork, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of countries are not as easy to get that citizenship. But
yeah,
needs to say, why does Jeffrey Epstein, why does a Mossad American Israeli, pedophile honeypot agent / asset, God knows what else, what is all these connections, man? It's really weird, but it says a lot when the elected representatives, they're not doing anything about it. Like, how are you not doing anything about it? How do you have all these who's who, the politicians, the judges, Judge Roberts was on that flight log. Like, what are they doing going to Pleasure Island, Epstein's Island? We just want to know. If Epstein and Ghislaine were both convicted, guilty, clearly he didn't himself, and nobody's just wanting to, we have everything. Why are you not even investigating it? Congress doesn't even talk about it. Like, that's the biggest red, even the media. Bro, if I was a media company in terms of like the tabloid magazine, whatever, and have all this resources, and I want a cover story, a fucking awesome story, like a story that can give me information for decades, and I choose not to act on that, I choose to not go on the whole Epstein thing and just go crazy, people would be reading the shit, eating popcorn. But somehow they're just like, no, it's not. There's nothing there. Leave it alone. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, and they push that propaganda because there's clearly something there, and that something there is arguably one of the biggest things on planet Earth once it's uncovered.
Yeah, look at the flight logs, bro. The biggest names on the earth are going. Bill Clinton gets 27 times, 27 flights back and forth. And we know about Bill's history. It's not the best. It's not very squeaky clean when it comes to his...
they don't even do anything, right? But the association is enough to essentially ruin your career, right?
Oh, yeah, because bro, you say
so that's the point. That's the whole blackmailing operation. That's how it goes. Is that that association? You're on the flight log. So when they brought that kid out, you might have said no or something, but Still got you, buddy.
Especially
Still
if
got
you're
you
there
somehow.
repeatedly. Like maybe you went there the first time and said, "Oh yeah, guys, it's not really for me. Thank you for the invite." But if you're there repeatedly,
You have
you
to just think
know,
about it, right? Because, you know, we're all professionals, we're business people, and it's like, if I went and flew on somebody's private jet dozens of times, that would probably be somebody you're close to, right? Like somebody that you know on a personal level. Like people don't just invite you onto their private jets for no reason, right? Like you generally, like private jets cost a lot of money, right?
yeah,
So you don't just like invite random people over on your private jets.
to your exclusive island, bro.
Yeah,
like, it's probably
and think about it. This is a private jet that's flying like from like far distances, right?
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
expensive. And if you think about it, just any person who, you know, flies in private jets, has friends who fly in private jets, if you brought somebody onto your private jet that many times, and then you tried to say a few decades later that you weren't friends with this guy and you didn't really know him that well, sounds kind of like bullshit, right?
Bro, it's like who was it? Was it I think it was Alan Dershowitz, which was his lawyer.
Yes.
Right? Then he stayed at his space at the spot he had in New York, and then he goes, "I just stayed there. I don't know. I didn't know him that well. He just offered his place." Some random dude that you're just coincidence or associates at best offers their place, and you said yes. Like it's just no big deal. I just want to add two things to that because what you said is important. How close is the connection? Chelsea Clinton's wedding. You got a picture of Ghislaine Maxwell front row and center. To that, that's a very close connection. You weren't just at the wedding; you were at the wedding, at the daughter's wedding.
Yeah, front row. That's family,
right? As she's walking, yeah. Go look up that picture. Come on, man. How and plus he was already. This was like he was already convicted of this shit back in 2012, I think. I want to say he was the first time convicted, and of course, Alan Dershowitz gets him off, right? Or he gets him some sort of light sentence. But he goes back into it, you know, like it's obvious, man, and it's global. It's not just America, you know. It's people on that flight from all over the world. Prince, one of the royal British family members. I mean, it just needs to be investigated, and the fact that it's not even investigated really speaks volumes.
I mean, that's where we're at. That's where we've become, you know, as a country, as a justice system, even on a global scale. That's the way I look at it is once a case like this goes high up enough in those ranks, I mean, if it's contained with those high level people like Epstein and all his associates, this is what we see. We see nothing.
Yeah.
The line is drawn somewhere, fellas.
Well,
you know, so
yeah,
I'm not surprised really.
Yeah, it's wild, man. It's wild. I will say that I think there's a big shift, and I think right now, just on a global scale, I think the U.S. is about to take a back seat, or at least take a mid seat, because like if you take a look at how the U.S. is responding to this situation, let's say as Palestine, just to bring it back a little bit, the U.S. haven't really done much, and they've been, in all things considered, fairly tame, because we can't afford to get involved in a regional conflict on that kind of a scale.
And I think the politicians in America realize that the popular support, it just isn't there for them to play this game again.
Right. Yeah. And that's why it's a bunch of posturing. Like think about it, man. Hezbollah, which is on a scale of things, it's a ragtag militia. It's not even a military, right?
Yeah, they're a political party in Lebanon. They're not even it's not the Lebanese military.
It's not, yeah, but it's acting as. it's acting as because they have to, right?
It would
the
be like
southern
if the
border.
Libertarian Party had a militia wing, like a military wing, right?
Yeah, like the Proud Boys. Imagine the Proud Boys.
Look, if it wasn't
Yeah.
for Hezbollah, some of those southern parts of Lebanon would be considered Israel right now. I mean,
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, I've been
Yeah, you
there.
want to add on to that a little, Jacob?
I've been
What do
there.
you mean by that?
I've literally walked through those battlegrounds. I saw the shelling. I saw the shell buildings. The
You were in
Israeli
Lebanon?
tanks. Yeah, southern Lebanon. I was visiting Beirut, but I drove a little further south.
Hey, let me ask you, what is the distance, the drive to
It's not
Beirut?
long.
Like like an hour, 2 hours?
To where?
Like from Beirut to the south where the war typically is happening, like where they're being bombed right now.
I mean, we were taking the scenic route, and it took us probably we didn't want to get right to the border because you really can't. But we were in an area where the village there experienced some heavy shelling. And that was a sign that we were literally as close as you would like to get to that southern border.
And how long?
I was just there last year.
Take you?
Huh?
How long did that drive take you?
About an hour and a half or so.
That's nothing, right? So that's pretty much like LA to Orange County.
And we were taking the scenic route, so I'm sure you can get across a little quicker.
Well, by the way, Israel just through a jet fighter struck a car in South Lebanon that had
I saw that.
three chicks and their grandma. But
Mm-hmm.
Hezbollah, being just a militia, is nowadays has so much power that as soon as Nasrallah comes out and gives a speech, immediately the leader of the United States, the most powerful army, the leadership of the most powerful military, has to come out immediately and make an announcement in a press release and say, well, we're not trying to escalate that conflict.
Which was strategically, from a military strategy standpoint, was extremely intelligent from just a pure military strategic standpoint.
Well, they have to.
Yeah, you're not escalating using your words, but in the background, you'll do what you need to do.
Yeah.
Actually, I wanted to add on to what you just brought up because Hezbollah today hit Israel back for that attack that you just brought up in southern Lebanon, and there's a video of it as well that's on Twitter right now.
Yeah, so Hezbollah has been first of all, these guys are brilliant. I mean, just to really look at the way that they've been operating, it's a masterpiece. And I'm telling you, this whole thing, this is going to be taught in colleges, like at war colleges, and
I totally agree.
Be in textbooks.
They beat Israel.
Amir, your live stream ended.
I'm just going to go back on. Yeah, we're going to go back on it again. But sorry, continue.
Hezbollah beat Israel in a war not too long ago. They defended that southern border. I was there. I saw the imploded.
Are you talking about the 2006 Lebanon war?
I believe it was 2006.
Yeah, that was a hardcore battle between Israel and Lebanon,
Israel back.
And Israel arguably lost that war.
100%. They left those tanks there. Those tanks that they blew up. They're still there today as a reminder. Just if they ever decide to come back.
And if you guys could join the IG again right now. So that 2006, if you all want to learn more about that war, it's referred to as 2006 Lebanon War. And a lot of people died in that conflict as well. I vividly remember when that was happening, and it was just one of those moments that showed that Israeli power is not my battery. Israeli power is technological more than anything else.
Israeli power really was, it wasn't even, their only power was actually what it turned out to be is none. It was the threat of their power. It wasn't really their power. For 1,400 ragtag militia members.
That's a good point. The threat of their power, not the actual power.
Absolutely. It's a paper tiger. It's been a paper tiger. And I think right now this war is literally the beginning of the dismantlement of that state of Israel. And the eventual conclusion is not going to be a two-state solution. It's going to be a one-state solution, and it's not going to be the Israelis. But it will be peaceful eventually. And I can guarantee you that, because that's how it used to be prior to 1948. A lot of people don't want to talk about the fact that prior to 48, the indigenous Jews that were living there, and they were living there, they had the Jewish market, which was in Arabic, it's Su'ul Yahud, which, I mean, they lived there in peace.
So you just said they had a actual Arabic name for the Jewish market.
Yeah, right? Yeah, Su'ul Yahud. They had their own market. They lived there, it was fine. And what had happened was when the World War II ended and they started bringing them, as refugees because they were war-torn and so forth, they were welcomed. And it was the actual indigenous Jewish population that were extremely anti-Zionist at that time. And if you look up the people that were beaten and killed and persecuted, because they recognized what was going to happen. They were saying, wait a minute, we know what this is going to be like. We got a good thing here with these Arabs. You guys are going to come in here, try to create a state. It's going to piss these people off because we know that they're very territorial, and it's going to create a problem, and we're going to have a war, and it's going to suck. And then they had a vote, and the Zionists obviously won the vote, and then they established Israel. And indigenous Jewish folks that were living there prior to 48, the ones that were anti-Zionist, that did not want the state to be initiated, were killed, beaten, persecuted, so forth. So eventually, there cannot be a two-state solution, not after all of what's been happening.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's just the fact. And the point that I was trying to make earlier is that the U.S. isn't in a position to go to war because of the internal conflict and the internal, the population is not on board with it. That's one. Number two, we have an extremely crazy high inflation problem that is literally we're starting to feel it. On top of that, you've got Russia sitting in Syria, ready to go in. You got Hezbollah. Hezbollah is not going to go in unless something. I mean, Hezbollah is still being diplomatic. You talked about they're attacking back and forth.
Yeah,
it's a strike for a strike.
Waiting.
Exactly. And
they understand what initiating any strike means. This is a chess game. They're not just going to start throwing rockets.
If they go too hard on offense, Israel's going to have an excuse to start bombing Beirut, essentially.
Exactly, and they don't want that for the people. To be honest. But Israel has already made clear that they want to go up into Lebanon and take it. They made clear that they want a war with Lebanon. As you can see, they just hit the civilian vehicle filled with a mother and like her 3 daughters, I believe, right?
3 kids, yeah.
So
3 little girls.
And you have to think too, what are you going to say, that there were some Hezbollah terrorists or whatever the fuck in that car?
Of course, that's what they already said. They said that. They said that.
And that's the thing. It's like this is one of the most technologically advanced militaries in the world, right? They have clear vision on their cameras from the sky of who's getting in that car, who it is. This isn't you can't play dumb when you're this technologically advanced, right?
They're just baiting. So here's what's happening, right? Nasrallah comes out. Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, the spokesman, let's say the leadership of Hezbollah, is a very intelligent man. And when he came out and he did his speech, it was very balanced. He said, we're not going to escalate, but every option's on the table. And if Israel escalates to a point where they're doing something just out of whack, for example, crazy more bloodshed, although it's been crazy already, or using the nerve gas in the tunnels, as they suggested, that if they do anything that's beyond the pale, which for them, that the standard is so gone by them, doesn't matter. Or if Gaza is to start be on the brink of falling, that is when Hezbollah will step in. And if the Hezbollah steps in, it's going to be a big problem. And the U.S., part of why, and this is why Israel actually threw this missile at the car and then said, oh, we mistaken. We know that it's bullshit. Of course you did it on purpose. They're not going to say it, but what they're trying to do is they're trying to bait Hezbollah from retaliating in an big fashion as a declaration of war, so Israel can bring in the U.S. and the West.
That's
and
a
the
great
US
point. And that's exactly what they do with the Palestinians as well. And clearly all sides have figured out their strategy, and they just keep recycling the same strategy without recognizing that you played your hand too many times.
So
Right?
Hassan Nasrallah, in his speech last Friday, he said, all things are on the table.
And they're ready.
Peace is on the table. All out war is on the table. They're literally ready for anything. But he would like to open the dialogue for peace. And Israel's response to that is to blow up a vehicle full of young girls, a small family.
Yeah,
a mother and her 3 daughters. That was the response. So I really feel like on a diplomatic level, from dealing with country to country, I think the moves on both Israel and the U.S. side are always the sign of the aggressor, but they want to paint the picture otherwise. I think the U.S. could have kept its aircraft carriers. That was almost like the first move that happened. As soon as this thing popped off, we could have just left it as is. And I don't think this would have gained as much traction in the global public eye as far as how is this going to really affect everyone on a global scale, right? But when everybody started to see those aircraft carriers move in, even Putin said that was a very childish move on a country's part to respond like that.
Use that word. It's childish. Strong men who know how to use true violence and are skilled at it would not make a move like that. So it's just showing that the politicians that are at the top of the American government right now are weak little bitches, essentially, and they act exactly like that. And in a one-on-one scenario, you would be seeing the same thing that's scaled up to this massive. You bring your Air Force, like your aircraft carriers, dude. Like, what are you doing? To scare Hamas, bro? Scare Hezbollah? Like to scare Iran, bro? Like, and think about it. Essentially, this is how I looked at that, was that when you do that, you're essentially asking for your enemies to just take the bait, right? And why don't you go just send the drones on over there, and then if you do anything to our aircraft carriers, now we have the excuse, and then the media and the propaganda gets to say on this day everything started, not everything that happened years prior or the day before or the weeks before. It's just no, on this day, all the bad stuff started. So and it just happened to us, and they might. I don't know why they hate us. Must be for our freedoms, right?
So here's the way to that is so interesting. The reason this was such a shock is because, first of all, this is very interesting too. Most wars, you go to battle, go to war, you keep going until you win or lose. When Hamas initiated this attack, they already won. They won the war. They won the war by initiating the attack and going and succeeding within that first hit, because now it's a checkmate. There's nothing that Israel can do to gain anything back. They're not going to be able to get the land back. The psychological
everything they're just going to do from now on is just going to make them look worse, right?
Exactly.
Like, you want to drop a nuke now? Y'all are talking about dropping nukes. You think that's going to make the world community look at you better?
And that's why the U.S. had to come in. The U.S. didn't just come in. The U.S. came in for a few reasons. One reason is that they needed to posture to say to the world, "Oh, we still have their back," right? And they needed to do that immediately. That's to calm down
two aircraft carriers to
and the British
posture against 1,000 guys on lawnmower engines.
So that's exactly. And you have to know. So why is that? Part of the reason why that is because they had to calm the climate of the Israelis. Remember, Israel has been known to be the 6th most powerful military, the most advanced weaponry and technology. Who's gonna fuck with Israel? You're telling me 1,400 people went in versus an area that was patrolled by 14,000 IDF soldiers who have been getting billions of dollars for 70 years, 50 years. These 1,400 guys that came from a tunnel smashed everything. Oh, and by the way, the rave that they broke up, that was an IDF rave. It wasn't like just some random kids just hanging out. These are all fucking soldiers. But they went in, they took 250, they went back within a span of hours. And since then, they've been taken over all settlements, all initially belonging to them in the first place. And at that point, Israel is like, well, what do we do? What does Netanyahu do? He's unpopular. He's already got an uprising. He's already been talking shit about the Mossad and the military. Because
yeah, that's important to know. We mentioned that earlier about how the internal problems in Israel are at the brink of collapse, and this war essentially just helped that cohesion come back together a little, right?
I would say the opposite. What it did was it bought Netanyahu a little time, but it put him in a corner. And now it's even worse, dude. They're protesting outside his house, calling for his arrest. And here's the other part: he will be arrested no matter what, unless he pulls some crazy win, which he can't. And this is part of why he's going so nuts, is because these are the actions of a very emotional person. And they're like, how can I get a W out of this? And he cannot. The other part is Daddy Warbucks, aka the US, had to come in and say, okay, we're going to fucking run operations. Israel's not running the operations right now. It is the Americans over there, which is why they brought their carriers also. One is posturing, right? Two, it's a diplomatic move. It's to show
America's admitting that their drones are above Gaza right now too, and they're helping with intelligence.
They're absolutely. But this is all still a diplomatic move, saying we don't want a regional war. Here's the thing with the U.S., and this is why the U.S. they're trying to do whatever they can to get this to finish. But diplomatically in the back channels, they're telling Hezbollah, we don't want to enlarge this issue. We sent the carriers to prevent a regional war, not to create a regional war. Now, the U.S. cannot get involved in a regional war if Israel makes a move that's like too egregious, which, like I said, they're on thin ice in the first place, or if Gaza is about to fall. It's going to be Hezbollah coming in. Yemen is already coming in. Iraq is about to start coming in. They've already been
Yemen's already launched rockets. They've launched from Syria, from Iraq as well.
Iraq has been actually
Lebanon as
American bases. So
yeah,
everybody's ready to go.
So it's already going down right now. It's
and
just the resistance to Zionism is playing it very carefully right now.
And they're winning. The resistance is still winning. Every day, the resistance is winning. Every day, Israel is losing. Whether it's money, they're losing 250 million every single day since it started. They've been losing 215 million a day. Their
Not to mention the population loss they're having right now with people fleeing the country.
Everybody's leaving. All the people that they've spent billions trying to bring in and settle are fleeing in droves. Why would they want to live there? That shows you whose land it is. They don't want to even care to be there or fight for it. They're willing to kill for it. They're not willing to die for it. Now you got 40% of the economy is down because it's heavily reliant on the stock market. They also lost 30% of their currency power. The shekel is down 30%. They have a lot of problems. Now, America cannot really go into a large-scale war because, one, they still have the Ukraine, right? So for Russia, this was a checkmate. They go, oh, you guys want to keep fucking with Ukraine? So, okay, let's open this
put us in a depression here in the United States.
And Putin is playing that card now because he knows that this is the card to play.
And Putin, and guess what? Here's the other two cards that no one's talking about either. Dude, you got Russia and China. China and Russia have already been meeting with Hezbollah, and they've actually they've had their delegations come in and they hosted them, right? And then on top of China, which is looking at Taiwan, going, damn, Taiwan looks pretty delicious right now. If America's down there and this thing blows up, what are they going to do? Come fuck with us in Taiwan? And what happens if they take Taiwan? All our computer chips are pretty much coming from there. You imagine, right? The other part is China is the country that brokered the peace deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia. So there's a coalition. Saudi Arabia, when Blinken and when Biden came to the Middle East, they were supposed to be in a summit where it's supposed to be Jordan, Egypt, Israel, and I think Turkey, and Saudi Arabia. All of them rejected him. They said, okay, we're not going to meet with you. The Prince of Saudi Arabia, when Anthony Blinken went in, he welcomed him at a farm. Wasn't even at a palace. And he made him wait for an extra hour. Or sorry,
yeah,
an extra day.
which is a clear,
an extra day.
As far as foreign policy and diplomacy and government goes, this is essentially a big fuck you without saying the words fuck you.
Exactly.
You know?
So now you have all of this, and you got North Korea. North Korea that came out and condemned Israel. So the U.S. is not going to want to start this, bro. They've got so much on their plate with inflation, with a population that's sick of their government, especially with Biden. He's got an election coming up. I mean, the timing has been flawless for this to start.
If we go into an emergency government, that keeps Biden in place.
It's
so
possible.
I wanted to talk about that.
If
Emergency
we
government.
go,
People are talking about this a lot. Jacob,
all-out war in the Middle East.
Tell us a little bit about that, about what's being talked about with this emergency government to make sure this election doesn't go down. That's being talked about right now.
It's a possibility. I mean, we have to think about it. You can't rule that out. It could happen in a blink of an eye. If we go to all-out war in the Middle East, it is, suffice to put in a temporary emergency government, and the Biden administration will hold itself in there for as long as they feel that is necessary, until, that might destroy these elections coming up in 2024. You don't know. You can't rule that out for sure, especially with what's going on the international stage. Now, whether or not do we want a war like that? Can we handle a war like that? Like a lot of the points that you just mentioned, Fadi, I don't think it's going to be good for America to go in on another war. That I think, if you thought what we have going on in Ukraine was hurting us, this is like times 10.
Yeah. We haven't really, the inflation is just starting. I mean, the other day I went to get, I usually get this raw milk, and I get it. Raw milk is a little bit bougie, but man, I got a tiny bit, just a very tiny bit, like a quart, and it was for $7, $8. You go to the grocery store, everything is more expensive. Gas is expensive. So inflation is just starting, and they just agreed to send another $100 billion. But here's the part, and I agree with what you're saying, that America is not ready to take on this kind of a war. By the way, the people in America had it up to here. Look at how many veterans that came back from Iraq that realized that was all bullshit. You think they're going to want to send their kids, or that they're going to want to serve? We're just barely getting out of Afghanistan and Iraq.
Well, that's what I was saying, is if they try to pull some kind of shit like that again and try to draft people or whatever, there are going to be internal problems in America, because there are a lot of pissed off men who the U.S. government paid and trained to be very skilled in violence. And now those men are extremely angry about the direction that the United States is going in, right?
And, Amir, there's also one more country. China is in Afghanistan. The Afghanis so far have a good relationship with China, because the way China's been trying to infiltrate Africa and Afghanistan and the Middle East, it's not, they looked at America and said, man, those guys went in there with guns blazing and they got their shit kicked in. After 20 years, they got nothing, right? But we swoop in, we get all their military airport and all this stuff. And if we play cool with the Afghans, hey man, the Taliban's ready to go. The Taliban, if they get the green light, they would be in Israel in 2 seconds. Mm-hmm. You got Chechnya, which sides with Russia right now. So remember.
Hey, I guess. Hey, let's talk. I guess you said Chechnya. Let's maybe shift into some MMA talk a little, because all three of us men are very deep into that world and related to this topic. Because did you all see the tweet this week from that Israeli MMA dude that put the names of Khabib and Hamzat and on the bomb? They put his name on there.
Yeah, that guy's a bum, bro. He's a bum. That guy is a bum.
What's his name? Do you know his name, Fadi?
He's a no-name, man. He just happens
Yeah,
to
he's a
be an
no-name.
Israeli.
Like literally.
You know what he did recently? And all the Israelis were like clapping for him. This was like about a month ago, maybe. One of Nick Fuentes. So you guys know who Nick Fuentes is.
Mm-hmm.
One of his fans, this like ginger, big, he was kind of like out of shape looking dude that maybe he works out, and I think he had some kind of karate background. And he wanted to challenge this Israeli MMA fighter. And he went to his gym, and the MMA fighter sparred with him and kicked his ass, which was not surprising, right? But they made this big hullabaloo about like, oh, the Israeli kicked his ass. It's like, bro, this guy trains MMA. This is a fat slob that just is an internet troll.
Wait, you said it was a karate guy challenged him? Like, of course, a karate guy's going to lose to an MMA guy.
He wasn't even like practicing at that time. Like he had a background. He was just a fat troll, one of Nick's fans. And shout out to him for doing that, by the way. But he went there, and this like Israeli guy's all like taking it seriously, and he got the best of him. But it's like all his people are sitting there with their big bicep curl on the Instagram, like, yeah, buddy, dude, that guy would get his shit kicked in 2 seconds if he were to step in with any of the people he put on that bomb. Hamza would rip his head off.
The guy's name is Haim Ghazali, and he posted a picture on his Twitter with the caption that says, "This from me to the rats." It's a rats emoji, and it's a picture of a bunch of Israeli bombs that are probably from America, and it has the names of Khabib, Bilal Muhammad, Islam Makhachev, Islam Makhachev, and Khamzat Chimaev, who are 4 Muslim MMA fighters. And it's like, dude, Khabib, you serious, bro?
Dude, any of those 4 would like crush his head in 2 seconds.
Khabib would with close, one arm defeat this guy, dude.
It's not even close, bro. It's not. You want a pussy, bro. You know what? Why don't you go back to Israel? Why don't you go fight with the IDF? You're so tough. Why don't you go fight, bro? That's your homeland. You want to fight?
Of that,
God gave you that land. Go fight for it. Go IDF. Go fight the Hamas people. You get your shit rocked in 2 minutes.
Yeah,
bro.
Jacob. Sorry, what are you saying? Go ahead.
A lot of people in the IDF, they don't want to fight. I mean, they have to. These guys are forced to join. So
yeah, it's forced conscription, by the way. So this whole the Fadi you were saying, it's like
there's
the people at that rave, they're all IDF. Well, they have forced conscription there. So if you want to be a citizen there, even if you're a female,
it's a thing. Even if they were, bro, it's a different generation. That's not the same generation from the 40s and the 60s and the 70s that actually went to war.
Oh, you're right. Oh, absolutely.
These are soft kids who just all they do is pick on citizens every once in a while. They're not sitting there in the trenches, fighting. They don't want to go to war. They want to smoke weed and hang out at the beach at Tel Aviv and have gay parties and shit.
Yeah, which is what we all want to do.
Yeah, they just want to kick it. They're not trying. Like I said, man, they don't mind seeing the goyim go in and killing on their behalf, but they're not going to die for their country. Not a lot of them. They don't want that shit. They don't want to be fighting. They want to just hang out, and they've had it easy. And the people of Gaza has been the opposite. Gaza has been the breeding ground of toughness. What doesn't kill you, literally, that only makes you stronger. And those are the most resilient motherfuckers. When Egypt closed down the trading route that they had back there with their tunnel system and everything, they had to become self-sufficient. So right now, the same thing with Russia. When they had all the sanctions, Russia is saying the same thing. They both are parallel. They both are 2 organizations that are self-sustaining. Hamas make their own weaponry. Hezbollah makes their own weaponry. They get some stuff, but they're building their own suicide drones. That was built by an engineer, some Palestinian dude. They are self-sustainable. And after this war, just like after 2006, Hezbollah was never the same again after 2006. They became a faction. They became the de facto military of Lebanon. Right now, after this, Hamas is never going to go back to how it used to be. They're going to be a very, very serious threat and a legitimate militia. I'm telling you, this is the beginning of the dismantling of the state of Israel.
Jacob, what do you think about that?
Yeah,
Roger says yes.
Getting back to that, I really feel like the beginning of the end of Israel. I mean, if you follow theology, you're a Muslim, right?
Alhamdulillah, yeah.
I'm Christian Catholic,
right?
You read the Hadith?
Yeah, it's in the Quran. It's all three, by the way.
It's in the Bible.
It's in the Torah as well.
And the Torah actually says that the Jewish people are forbidden to even aspire to have a Jewish sovereign state. And I believe that if you can connect all these versions of the end of times books, right, in every religion, that ties in very well to what we get from the Christian Bible and from the Hadith in the Quran. They literally, the Jews say it's forbidden for us to aspire for our own state. That's what's going to bring upon the evil. And here we are, the evil Jews, the synagogue of Satan, as quoted in the book of Revelations of the Bible, literally says the synagogue of Satan. I believe that's referring to the people, the Zionists. I really believe that that's referring to Zionists and their aspiration to have their Jewish sovereign state goes against everything that their book, the Jewish book, teaches them. So then you move on to the Hadith, which also says that the Jewish state of Israel, they will destroy the world or ruin the world twice, and this is going to be the second time. And at the second time, it's going to be Israel will be wiped off the map. It's literally written there in the End of Times book and what's going to happen at the end of times. It's if you dig into that and you read the English version of what is to happen during the end of times in all three books, they correlate. Jesus is one of the most quoted people in the end of times. I mean, it's almost, I wanted to say it was almost like revolved around him and his coming, the true coming of Christ, not the Antichrist. It's like the Muslims are even waiting for Jesus to come, bro.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
they know that this is a huge sign. And I believe I read, correct me if I'm wrong, Fadi, in the Hadith, that when the true Messiah arrives, he would actually lead all the true believers, Christian and Muslim, in prayer.
Correct.
And Jesus, as humble as he is, will have the Mahdi lead in prayer.
Correct.
And then they would the believers would ascend into heaven. So when you tie all those things together, toppled with the fact that the Torah says we are forbidden to aspire to our own Jewish state, you're like, hey, why is this happening? You know, and these Zionists are the ones that are pushing it in the name of the Jewish faith. Okay. But the true Jews know that this is evilness. This is Satan's work. This is the true evil. They are literally conducting the truest evil in the Holy Land, covering it up, brainwashing and blinding the masses, and then putting the blame on the actual true believers and the original followers of Jesus in the area. The Christians, Palestinians are even a smaller group in Gaza that are, if you thought the Muslim Palestinians felt some sort of way and felt weak right now, imagine how the Christians feel. They're like almost next to nothing right now over there, preserving what's left of the Christian faith in those areas. It's just something is just beyond me that everyone's overlooking.
There's something in the especially the Arab world and the Muslim world, because it's the Arab world, is, let's say, it's predominantly Islamic. There's always been this kind of sentiment that it's the Jewish folks that are the threat, or that let's say they're rivals, right? And that the Jews really don't like Muslims because of the Israeli-Palestinian situation. It's always been the sentiment that Jews don't like Muslims because of that, and because of things that have happened in the U.S. and the whole
Jews or Zionists.
Both.
Jews. Like we're
Both.
talking like when they talk about it, they're acting like from a historical theological perspective, like 1,000 years ago, they just like we're always against each other, which just is not a factual statement because the reality of the situation is that those groups were heavily intermingling and had general peace among each other more often than not.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to and because I go off on tangents sometimes, and I apologize, my ADHD is off the tracks, but just I'll bring it back. But to your point, Jews have had a historically bumpy road with Muslims to begin with, and they've had a bumpy roads with the Christians as well, and the Christians have had a bumpy road with the Muslims. The one thing that's been a net negative when it comes to Jewish and Islamic relations is Jews have predominantly tended to double cross Muslims. And that's per history, just historical battles and things that have happened. However, if you ask Jews, historians, they can tell you a couple of things. One, that Jews had the golden era for Jews was during when the Muslims were in Spain, during the Andalusia time frame. And after Muslims had been kicked out of Spain, they went to the Jews and essentially said, here's your jizya tax. We can no longer protect you. We're leaving. And it was the Jews, and Jewish historians will come out, Orthodox Jews.
Wait, sorry. Did you just say that they gave the tax back to them because they couldn't protect them?
Because they were leaving. They gave them back the jizya tax, and they said, we are leaving Spain. And then the Jews
and actually, the jizya tax, for anybody who doesn't know, is that in Islam, when you conquer other places that are Muslim, you can give them three choices essentially. One of them is pay a tax, the other is convert, the other is we'll fucking kill you. So usually they go and pay the tax. So that's why I asked the question, because I was like, wow, I didn't know that they, they're just like, hey, look, we can't actually protect you, so here's your money back. Yeah, I didn't know that was in the historical record.
Yeah, it's historically accurate.
Yeah.
Look, the true Muslims, the good Muslims that follow the faith and are actually honest, I think, for example, you look at Hamas. Everyone's like, oh, Hamas are barbarian terror. Go look at the people that all the hostages that were let go. The old grandma that was let go, she left. She said that she was treated very nice, like it was all good. They treated her fairly. They gave her food. They had females that knew about feminine hygiene. And
that was wild. Yeah, that was a wild interview, right?
There's a lot of interviews. 3 people so far, 4 people came out. They're also the same thing. And the Israeli government tries to suppress them. And the old lady, they tried to say that she was crazy or she was senile. And she said, I'm not going to be silenced.
Yeah, the Israeli government had to, that was a PR nightmare for them, essentially, because they're painting this picture that these terrorists are like raping, breaking pelvises.
Babies and others.
Breaking pelvises, right?
Yeah, like the typical Hasbara.
And then they come out and then they explain how they were treated as prisoners, and you're like, damn, really? That sounds better than a lot of other places that you would like.
If you hear the stories,
better than taken by the Israelis.
The Israelis are kidnapping people, beating them, peeing on them,
thousands
like mutilating
of them, like beating them. Yeah, like those Gazans, they just released them back in. But they were hostages this entire time, and they're coming out now and talking about their stories of what was happening to them under Israeli captivity, how they were just being completely tortured. And then this is the crazy thing: when Israel let them go, they made them walk 6 kilometers back into Gaza. They didn't like drop them off, at the border. They're like, get the fuck out, go walk.
Typical, man. And so that's kind of been the thing. And so with Muslims, when they left Spain, they gave the jizya tax back. Like Amir said, typically the jizya is, hey, we're going to take over your government. You can pay taxes because we're going to protect. We're going to be the military.
Like if you don't want to convert to Islam and you still want to be Jewish and you want to practice your Judaism publicly and all good, you got to pay that.
Yeah, and that's what they did in Spain. So they get the tax back, and then the Jews requested from the Muslims. They said, well, can we come with you? Because the Spaniards are going to kick our ass. So the Muslims brought the Jews with them from Spain to Morocco and Yemen. And that's why there's still Jews in Morocco and Yemen. That's an actual historically factual thing that people can research and read about. And I've heard
Morocco has a big Jewish population. A lot of those Moroccan Jews went over to Israel, but
Exactly.
Morocco has a history of a Jewish population, like a
So-
robust Jewish population.
and so with the history of the Middle East, look,
We got
Palestine
a little,
belongs
we got a little guest star here right now.
that land belongs to the Canaanites. Who's this guy?
This is our half Palestinian, half Irish.
Actually, I
his name
have
is
a
James.
video in my watch later. It's the title is Islam Judaism? Mind-blowing interview with Professor Reuven Firestone. So that's actually in my
There's
watch
a lot
later list.
So-
because when you Fadi, we actually have a lot of these religious conversations, but I'm
Yeah.
realizing now more and more when you do study religion from that outside in lens, and just objectively, like I'm not looking at it from this religion or that religion, it seems like you find even more peace than we're even talking about among these groups, and the connections. Like it's like, okay, I haven't watched this video yet, but why is there this hour-and-a-half interview like of this guy saying is Islam Judaism? And another thing I hear often is the connection of Christianity and Islam, and how I just watched this theological interview the other day about how they were talking about how before Islam there was no Arabic Bible in that land. And it's like, well, how did the Arabic Bible get there? Who brought it there? So it shows like these groups were way more connected and intermingling than we would think, just like today, right? Just like today, in the West Bank, Jacob, you got your family there, you got Muslims down the street, and you have Jewish people over the hill over there now, but
Yeah.
That's look, all these religions are very similar because there's only one religion, right? The creator, right? And it goes back before Judaism. It goes back to the time of Abraham. So when the Jews say this is ours,
well, I would say it goes before Abraham. If you correct me,
Noah.
Noah and Adam. Yeah,
and Adam.
That's the Noah and Adam is what brings everybody really under that same.
Yeah, there's a creator. It's a very simple equation. There is a creator. He created this universe. He gave people purpose, and he sent them instructions. And he sent people to help them read these instructions on a very small nutshell, right? So that's why when I look at the Quran, dude, it mentions Jesus 5 times more than Muhammad. It mentions Moses 25 times more than Muhammad. There's an entire chapter about Jesus, an entire chapter about Muhammad, an entire chapter about Mary, an entire chapter about Mary's family, Al-Umran. It talks about the virgin birth, and to Jacob's point, it talks about Jesus will return as the Messiah, and he will unite all the believers, and they will go against the Antichrist and all the disbelievers that follow the Antichrist, who commands all of the Satan, the devils, and all the different, let's say, evil entities and so forth, right? So per the scripture in the Quran, in the Bible, and I've heard and I've seen and I've shared videos of rabbis, because it's in their religion as well, that there will be a time the Christians will unite with the Muslims and they will go against the Israelis. Now, is it Israel? Is it the Jews? Is it the synagogue of Satan? Because this is what I tell my Christian friends who are Zionists. And I go, listen, if God sent Jesus, and I think Jacob, correct me, but in the Bible, it says Jesus was sent to the Jews, correct?
Correct.
I think he says,
Jesus is supposed to be, like, he claimed to be the Jewish Messiah, therefore fulfilling the destiny of those Jewish prophecies.
Right.
And the rejection came from the Jewish population essentially saying, no, you're not.
Right. And but if God sent a messenger, there's a reason. It's to let him know that you guys are messing up. And here's what you got to do. And instead, per Christians, they murdered Jesus and he was ascended into heaven. Per Islamic faith, they tried to kill Jesus and he was ascended into heaven. But the point being was the Jews over there, they never converted and they never followed Jesus, and some did, and those that did became Christians. So I tell my Christian friends that seem to be Judeo-Christian or Zionist Christians, I go, how could you say that that religion can be correct when your whole faith is predicated on the fact that it was sent to correct the path they're on?
Yeah,
And they never did.
Judeo-Christianity is I'm trying to bring a new term. It's like Islamo-Christianity, because Islam.
Never heard that one before.
I've never. Well, people don't really say it.
It's becoming a thing now.
Like, how do we create a like?
But it's uniting them. See, this war. You look at the Groypers. You look at the National Socialists. You look at all the hard right people. You look at the left people. It's uniting everybody, and there's a strong unity between Christians and Muslims now, because Christians are saying, "Wait a minute!" In the West now, in the Middle East, me and my Christian friends. I've had a lot of Christian friends in Jordan. We never get into any arguments. I mean, it's like we have very similar viewpoints. There's a few major differences, but these differences aren't
people need to realize that like Muslims and Christians aren't sitting around all day. Like the average person is not sitting around all day going like, hey, how was Jesus crucified? Did he get crucified? What was the exact details? Oh, like,
swear to God. Swear to God.
Like,
I grew up there.
Theological, scholarly debates that you're not having with your friends.
Yeah, it doesn't come up. It's just like whatever. It's cool, But it's interesting because the Christians in the West, they don't know this. They have an idea that these guys, they worship this thing called Allah, and some guy named Muhammad was like a pedophile, and that they're evil and they want to kill everybody. And it's
Jews believe Christians are idol worshippers.
You know what?
Yes.
Do you know that?
Absolutely.
I mean, they're the ones who say it. We're not saying it. They say it. I've heard it in multiple videos.
Because Jesus never came in their eyes.
Yeah.
And there's a really funny tweet from this. It was a Zionist account on Twitter. I swear to God, bro, I shared it in the stream. By the way, shout out to Network Radio. Go to networkradio.us/anarcho. Check out the streams that we did on Palestine, because we covered a lot of stuff. There's a lot of files and details and all that. There was an Israeli account, a Zionist account on Twitter in September of this year. In September, they had this whole post, and they were attacking Christians. And they were saying how Christians are idolaters, and finally they need to leave the land of Israel. I swear to God, man, just somebody go to networkradio.us/anarcho, click on the last stream or the one before. In September, they came out, attacked Christians, talking about their idolaters. They should be kicked out of Israel, and how dare they? It was so, and they compared them to the terrorists of Hamas and ISIS, right? Guess what happens? 1 month, October 7th happens. The same Israeli account has a new post, October 7th, saying, Christian brothers and sisters or Christian friends, Hamas is attacking your holy land and NATO isn't doing anything about it.
I saw that.
Did you see that? 1 month, you turn around and you backstab the people, and now you say, "Oh, come on."
How it started, how it's going, right?
Exactly, bro. So, it's and look, the Quran is very anti-Semitic. If one were to actually read some of it, they would, especially in today's standards, they would say it's anti-Semitic. Because there's a verse that says how that Christians are people that you should trust and that they're good, because they have priests and people among them and they are not arrogant. And in the same verse, it says, you will not find someone as opposed and as aggressive towards you as a non-believer or a Jew.
Yeah, I wanted to go back, and you brought up anti-Semitism, and that's actually discussed in the Bible as well. And I wanted to read, Jacob brought up the synagogue of Satan, and I just want to read the exact passages so that you can realize that those were the actual words. Like, synagogue of Satan is the actual words that were used. And I'm just going to read the passages from Revelation. And this is Revelation 2:8-9. And it says, and to the angel of the church in Smyrna write, These are the words of the first and the last, who was dead and came to life. I know your affliction and your poverty, even though you are rich. I know the slander on the part of those who say that they are Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. And then this is
Zionists.
Revelation 3:7-9 is, and to the angel of the church in Philadelphia write, I know your works. Look, I have set before you an open door, which no one is able to shut. I know that you have but little power, and yet you have kept my word and have not denied my name. I will make those of the synagogue of Satan who say that they are Jews and are not, but are lying. I will make them come and bow down before your feet, and they will learn that I have loved you. Jacob, is that something that
If you ask me, he's that's directly.
what does that
talking-
mean? What is that saying right there?
It's directly referring to Zionists, the people who call themselves Jews but are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan. They are literally doing evil in the name of the Jewish name, the state of Israel. The ideology behind Zionism is forbidden in the Torah. Any moderate Jew will attest to that. Any good, compassionate, loving Jew would deny the state of Israel and their agenda to push for a secular, sovereign Jewish state, expelling all Arabs. And what does that really mean? What does expelling all Arabs from the Holy Land mean?
Sounds like ethnic cleansing and genocide, right?
in Jerusalem, yes, it does. And in Jerusalem, you have some of the holiest sites for Christianity and for Islam. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's like the Dome of the Rock is like the third holiest site for Muslims on the planet. And I mentioned this before. There is a plan to demolish the Dome of the Rock Mosque and the building of Solomon's Temple. So this is taking back the theology, and if you want to tie the theology into what's happening in the real world, if you look at the 25-year plan for the city of Jerusalem, the map and the layouts, it does not include the Dome of the Rock Mosque. It's not there. Instead, what's there is the Solomon's Temple, the temple that they want to build in place of it, directly in its place. To me, my personal opinion, as a Palestinian Christian, I believe that is going to be the initiation of the last war. That is going to be the beginning of the end. Once you take out the Dome of the Rocks, you're going to get every Muslim nation, every Muslim country is going to declare war on Israel. And in my opinion, when the Hadith speaks about the Jews destroying the world twice, I think this is what it's going to be. The chain of events that it's referring to is there, and the building of the Jewish temple in place of the Dome of the Rock Mosque. That's actually, if you read the Book of Revelation and the Hadith, it actually says that Jesus is going to travel from a certain part, not Jesus. The Antichrist will travel from wherever he is at in the Middle East, and he will travel to that temple, and where he would rule, because he's going to gain a lot of power. There's going to come in a time when there's, people are starving in Gaza right now. There's going to be famine. There's going to be disease. There's a lot of things going on that are pointing towards these things that I'm reading in the Book of End of Time, the Book of Revelation. It's almost like the Zionists are pushing for these agendas by creating this temple almost in a waiting for the Antichrist, who's going to travel from wherever he's at all the way to Jerusalem to rule from this temple. And when he gets to the temple, he's going to go from declaring he's the Antichrist to literally saying he is God. And at that point is when the true Messiah is going to arrive. Is when the Antichrist actually tries to convince us humans that he is God. And it's almost like the Zionist agenda pushes for these real world events to actually manifest. It's almost like they're following a script. It's absolutely sickening when you can look at it from a theological standpoint. And, you understand what's going on in the Hadith and what the Muslims are talking about the end of times, and you understand what the Christians are saying about the end of times in the book of Revelation. And you pull these quotes out like you just pulled out, Amir, and you can correlate that to who they're talking about and what they're talking about. It's literally happening now. It's real, bro.
There's go ahead, Amir.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up from just a Christian standpoint, in America, this is a very important piece of history to discuss, is that, hey, we hear back. Can you guys turn down your volume? I hear a little background echo coming up. All right, so check it out. There is, do you guys hear an echo?
I hear my thing. I haven't changed anything.
All right. It's a little close. All right, it's gone. It's gone. Okay, so check it out. There's this thing called the Schofield Bible. Can you, Fadi, can you move your camera from your...
I don't know where to put it, brother. There's nowhere else for me to put it.
Hey, we got, look who's in the chat right now. Our fourth guy that hopefully will be joining us again very soon. So there's this thing called the Schofield Bible, and this Bible was published in 1909. So when we talk about the Zionist occupation of Palestine, we can actually take back the Zionist occupation of America before Palestine even existed. And the Schofield Bible, go look into that. The Schofield Bible is when essentially this guy, Cyrus Schofield, changed this Bible. He worked with Zionists. He was a Zionist himself, and they included commentary that interpreted biblical prophecy in a manner that supported the return of the Jewish people to the land of Israel.
Wow.
So there's this belief system amongst in the Jewish community. There's something called Tikkun Olam, which basically delegates them to have to make the world better. And there's different schools of thought around that. But one of the things that they believe is if they can't fix the world by, let's say, changing it in a religious way, like, getting people to do good, that they will do it by other means. And they believe, a faction of them believes, that if they do enough crazy shit and there's enough evil and enough just everything just going so crazy, it would force the hand of God to return to fix things. So there is another belief system where it's like, well, we can just crush everything and turn the world upside down. And that would force God to have to come back and intervene and bring about the change that's necessary.
Indeed. Let's Jacob, do you have anything to say about that?
I mean, I was just reading, going on based off what you were saying, is, a lot of these Christians out here, these Christian Zionists, they believe that it's part of the prophecy for the Jews in order to have the true Messiah come back, they believe that the Zionist agenda, the pushing for the Israeli people to have their own sovereign homeland, actually pushes towards the actual return of the true Messiah. So they understand the ramifications of what their desires are. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's why I implore people to check to see if their Bible is a Schofield Bible, and if it is, then they're going to be having references that rationalize this Christian Zionist belief that this government is somehow legitimate.
Yeah, that was just
and Schofield Bible, just to clarify, it's a King James Version Bible. It just has different annotations in Schofield's version.
If people go to Instagram, or the people that are on Instagram, if you go on my page, which is, you can go to it's at networkradio.us. There's a post. It's a second post. It's a video. It just looks like you got Jerusalem right there, and there's all kinds of fire and smoke. I would highly encourage people to watch that clip. It's like a 3-minute, 4-minute clip, but it's very interesting because the narration is by a rabbi, and it goes everything that Jacob said. It actually kind of confirms a lot of it. And in the Quran, there is a couple of verses that go with what also Jacob was saying. I would say Al-Isra, which is, I think, chapter 5, I want to say possibly, but Al-Isra, and then part, let's see, sorry, I just had it up. There's a part in there, I think it's number 8 or number 9. It literally says,
hey, Fadi,
yeah.
And you like lower your feedback, because I can hear every click on your mouse.
I can't lower anything, bro. I don't know what to do. I can't. I told you not. Look, I told you not to have me go on both streams. I can't do anything. I don't know what to do. Actually, I have an idea. Let me try one thing.
I think it sounds fine. We got some people telling us it sounds fine.
No, I know what's happening. For some reason, the iPhone, because it's on Instagram as opposed to this stream right here, the Instagram, for whatever reason, I can't get my phone to mute. I'm lowering the volume all the way.
No, that's fine. It doesn't mute. That's like stupid ass.
It's retarded.
Can you
though.
believe like how dumb that is actually? Because that's just the thing. Like, it stops itself at like level 1. It won't let you go to 0.
Exactly, and it's
so I hear it as well. I just have my mic blocked to get noise from this side, and it's just from the front, so I don't hear it on mine. But it's just because you have a really good mic, so I can hear.
The
mic.
That's the other part. Is this setup?
Jacob, if you need a microphone, you should buy the one Fadi has, not the one I have.
The other part is this is a frustrating thing. Right now, I'm very frustrated, by the way, because I don't have my actual setup that I usually like to have. So I feel very naked in a sense.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have that real nice sharp 4K camera to see.
It's on me, my little hairs.
Yeah. That comment that I was bringing up the other day or today, actually. So let's see. Let's go through some of these chapters.
I'm gonna say one thing. Sorry, Amir, I have to say this just because I want to say it for Jacob. There's a verse. It's number 104. So it's chapter 17, verse 104. So if people want to Google it or whatever.
104. I already have it open.
Right. And what it says.
I'm on chapter 17. You said 104.
104. And it says, this is the direct quote. It says, "And we said to the children of Israel after Pharaoh, reside in the land." And the Arabic translation is basically, we're going to spread you across to occupy the land, meaning not just one area. And it says, reside in the land, but when the promise of the hereafter comes to pass, we will bring you all together.
I was scrolling so fast and I just stopped, and it stopped at 104 by itself. What a trip.
Dude.
Wow.
Yeah.
Talk about divine intervention
See?
caught on camera.
I just scrolled like with my fingers like this,
Wow.
and
Just all the way.
I just stopped, and boom, 104
Yeah.
is where it stopped. And it says, and we said to the children of Israel after Pharaoh, reside in the land, but when the promise of the hereafter comes to pass, we will bring you all together. 105.
Yeah. And Israel, I mean Israel, because look, Jews were only. By the way, so folks know this too. Are we going to do the live feed on the gram, Amir?
Oh no, we're done with that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The what was I just saying? Fuck. Israel, bring them together. Oh,
You were reading a passage from.
yeah. So the Jews were only in that region. They only were there for 400 years collectively. For 1,400 years, there was the Muslims and the Philistines, and the actual original people of that area is the Canaanites. The Canaanites were there before anybody else.
Yeah,
And
it's
so-
important to note that when we're saying, Jewish people or the Jewish tribes or whatever they're
Just
talking about,
generality,
that
yeah.
doesn't mean like it's not like that whole land was just Jewish tribes. Like there were a bunch of other groups that were also living there as well, right?
Yeah, and it's throughout history they've only had 400 years. Muslims, for example, 1,400 years. So and then they dispersed and moved around. So it's like they're trying to claim, and I don't know where they get off with claiming that somehow like Abraham and it's their prophets. It's like, bro, these guys were there. They're way before Judaism. You know what I'm saying? Like as a religion.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about those. I guess we're bringing up some theological history now, but I wanted to talk about how y'all were bringing up how in Jewish texts and in the Orthodox traditions they tend to follow these that Zionism in its modern form is the antithesis to Judaism. So I wanted to have you guys seen the page on Twitter that's like Torah Judaism?
No, I've only seen the Orthodox.
That's the page. That's
ones-
essentially.
Yeah.
So they have this page. It's at Torah Judaism on Twitter. They have 151,000 followers right now. It's a big page. Every day they're posting. The Orthodox Jewish angle, or just the anti-Zionist Jewish angle, because sometimes I don't see just Orthodox folks here. So if you want to see that this is not, because one of the arguments that I've heard from Zionists is like, oh no, they're not that big, like they're just a tiny fringe Jewish minority. And this page shows you that actually there are a lot of these people. A lot of them are in America. A lot of them are in Israel. Right now in Israel, they seem to be protesting in the West Bank. And in their neighborhoods, I just saw this video. They put up a Palestinian flag. IDF comes in, fucks them up, takes the flag down.
They beat them.
Yeah, they hate. Yeah, so
they beat their own people.
There was just a video that came out of a dude that got like a hemorrhage or something from like getting smacked down.
Oh yeah,
this like Jewish dude,
big dude, just
from the IDF.
He bodied him.
Yeah, you saw that, right? You saw that video?
Yeah. Because according to their Torah, and this is what I've heard the Christian rabbis or those practicing Orthodox Jews talk about, is they are saying that we were cursed to never have a homeland. We're not supposed to have a state or one spot or a that represents all of us. God intended for us to be spread out all across the land. That's according to there's videos of these people talking about it. And it also talked about divine intervention. I think it was maybe Ehud Barak or one of these prominent Jewish people came out a while back and said Jews have been expelled on average every 80 years. There's just like this curse where every 80 years they gather somewhere and then they have to go to this expulsion. And if you look at the history, expelled over 1,030 times throughout history, kicked out of 109 nations. This might be 110, but it's like, it's a historical thing. And they say it because they're always saying, like, hey, we've been persecuted all our life. And it's like, you guys are getting pretty close to 80 years with Israel. 75, 80 is coming up. It's about time for a repeat, it looks like. That's according to them, by the way.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I actually want to read this from jewishvoiceforpeace.org. It's their resource on Zionism. It says, Jewish Voice for Peace is guided by a vision of justice, equality, and freedom for all people. We unequivocally oppose Zionism because it is counter to those ideals. We know that opposing Zionism, or even discussing it, can be painful, can strike at the deepest trauma and greatest fears of many of us. Zionism is a 19th century political ideology that emerged in a moment where Jews were defined as irrevocably outside of a Christian Europe. European anti-Semitism threatened and ended millions of Jewish lives in pogroms, in exile, and in the Holocaust. That's actually really interesting that they wrote it like that. You all notice this language that they're using is like, you know, it's not the Zionist like rhetoric. It says, you know, ended millions of Jewish lives, and it didn't just say just in the Holocaust. You know, it's giving the robust explanation. Like, it wasn't just the Holocaust. Like, someone went into exile, they died over there. Some of them, like, it's a pogrom, they died over there. It wasn't just like, you know, so, and this is a Jewish Voice for Peace also, I believe, is a more secular group. These are not like super religious Jews. So it says, through study and action, through deep relationship with Palestinians fighting for their own liberation, and through our own understanding of Jewish safety and self-determination, we have come to see that Zionism was a false and failed answer to the desperately real question many of our ancestors faced on how to protect Jewish lives from murderous anti-Semitism in Europe. While it had many strains historically, the Zionism that took hold and stands today is a settler colonial movement establishing an apartheid state where Jews have more rights than others. Our own history teaches us how dangerous this can be. Palestinian dispossession and occupation are by design. Zionism has meant profound trauma for generations, systematically separating Palestinians from their homes, lands, and each other. Zionism in practice has resulted in massacre of the Palestinian people, ancient villages, and olive groves destroyed, families who live just miles away from each other, separated by checkpoints and walls, and children holding on to the keys of the homes from which their grandparents were forcibly exiled. Because the founding of the State of Israel was based on the idea of land without people, Palestinian existence itself is resistance. We are all the more humbled by the vibrance, resilience, and steadfastness of Palestinian life, culture, and organizing, as it is a deep refusal of a political ideology founded on erasure. Yeah, erasure. I like that word. In sharing our stories with one another, we see the ways Zionism has harmed Jewish people. Many of us have learned from Zionism to treat our neighbors with suspicion, to forget the ways Jews built home and community wherever we found ourselves to be. Jewish people have had long and integrated histories in the Arab world and North Africa, living among and sharing community, language, and custom with Muslims and Christians for thousands of years. Hey, we were just talking about that. By creating a racist hierarchy with European Jews at the top, Zionism erased those histories and destroyed those communities and relationships. In Israel, Jewish people of color from the Arab world, North Africa, and East Africa have long been subjected to systemic discrimination and violence by the Israeli government. That hierarchy also creates Jewish spaces where Jews of color are marginalized, our identities and commitments questioned and interrogated, and our experiences invalidated. It prevents us from seeing each other, fellow Jews and other fellow human beings, in our full humanity. So this goes on to just be a whole primer on Zionism from jewishvoiceforpeace.org. But as you see, it's there are many opposing views even within the realm of Zionism. And if you do study Zionist philosophy, which I have, and the history of it and the founding of it, like they're talking in the 19th century as a doctrine, then you'll see how many different opposing views they were and what the definitions should be and what it should really mean and where they should go. And so it's not a one size fits all doctrine, but today they try to push it as that, right?
Yeah, there's you know what's funny about what you just said too is that there is actually a verse in the Quran that literally says that even though you see them united as a front internally within themselves, they are fractured in many different factions, and that they are not in agreement with each other.
Well, unfortunately, I could say the same thing about every single religion, which is just so this whole like splintering of religious groups is why there's no God but God, period, kind of thing. Because Fadi, like you're Muslim. I posted, the whole taqiyya propaganda that gets recycled once every few years.
It's like the jihad,
you know
bro.
that one, right?
Yeah,
you know that one, right? About like how what that word means, right?
Yes.
Like how the people use it in America is like, look, the Muslims are lying and hiding out about like who they really. But I just commented back just to show how just annoying organized religion is. I posted a response, like a little clapback, about what taqiyya actually means, the Islamic history of it, how it was actually developed by one group of Muslims to protect against another group of Muslims and wasn't developed as an outside. And the comments that I got was just one Muslim after another, who were all contradicting themselves as well, to write me these comments telling me that what I wrote was wrong about taqiyya. And it's like, dude, I'm just going with the historical record here. But it just shows that these organized religions, it's just like, dude, why don't you just stop at like there's no God but God, then like Muhammad is the message, right? Like the Shahada. Like, why don't you all just stop right there? Once you say that, why don't you just stop right there? Because like again, like it's not just Islam and Christianity. We see the same, like, look at how many different sects of Christianity, Catholics and Protestants, like, it's just like these religious groups. And I think this is a very beneficial part of all of this, is that I think our generation and future generations look at the conversations we're having here right now, we're like, we're finding the common ground with the connection to God. And I feel like when we have just an abundance of information on these topics, whereas say, anytime up until recent history, if you were a religious scholar, and then you're going and talking to other religious scholars, like you didn't have the internet to sit there and go learn about 15 different other religions and compare and contrast and this and that, and then see like, hey, look, Christianity and Islam, like, look, these are like the same. Hey, look, Judaism and this, hey, Buddhism and this, or like,
I want to address that, because there's two things. The taqiyya is something that also the Shia Muslims do, and I'll
just add on to that, because what you want to say, I think we agree. Taqiyya as a doctrine, the name taqiyya, just to clarify for anybody listening right now, was originally created as a doctrine called taqiyya by Shia Muslims. It is now today a well-accepted doctrine, but within the Sunni sect, they have their own versions of taqiyya. Would you say that that's right, Fadi?
Yeah, they have a different. It's like a different thing for them. The Shia,
yes.
It's different, and Shia is a very small sect within Islam. Sunnah is the largest sect, let's say the most common sect of Islam. But I'll tell you why the taqiyya is an actual thing in the first place. In Islam, there's a something like a description of a person who is a hypocrite, like al-munafiq. which is it's a really bad. If you are an actual hypocrite, there's three things. One is that if you tell something and you lie. The other is if you make a promise and you break it. The third is if someone trusts in you and you break the trust. Those three elements make you a munafiq, and that is like a disgusting characteristic of a person. So it's very looked down upon. One of the things is lying. Lying in as in all religions is a really bad sin. And in Islam, there is a justification of when you can lie, and it is at an extreme time frame. For example, someone's going to murder you. Maybe you don't have the courage to denounce your religion, so you say, yeah, I don't believe in that. There's like a reason for it. It's not what they say it is, which is, you can use deception.
If it preserves life and safety, it's valid.
It's an extreme thing, and it's only done and it's only done for a religious purpose, a devotion type purpose. For example, you're saving someone's life, you need to say something to whatever the case is. It's not meant to manipulate people. And what kind of stupid religion believes in manipulation to gain other people, and then when you tell them, we lie to everybody so we can get it bigger, it doesn't make sense. Jacob, I saw that you got to get going, so I don't know if you want to give a plug or I'll
how long do you got, Jacob?
Well, I actually used up all my time, but I wanted to
give us your final thoughts.
Leave you guys with a little final thought on what we got on here to discuss is
let's finish out. Jacob, give me your thoughts as a Palestinian American man about House Republicans introduced bill to expel Palestinians from the country. As a conservative American, what are your thoughts on that?
That one really hits home, right? I'm a Palestinian Christian here, growing up in America. I'm all about America. I'm all about the Republican conservative way of life. It really lines up with my morals. It served me right. It served me good thus far. I'm very happy with where I'm at and the type of life I do live. Unfortunately, it kills me to see what's going on back home with my own people, and to see what my parents have been able to do while coming to America, and the success that they've been able to achieve here, the success that I'm able to achieve, and where we're still going. We're just scratching the surface. Palestinians have it in them. I feel like we don't even get a fair shot at life. If the fact that we can't, if that bill gets passed, it just stops another Palestinian from having their American dream. We're not evil people. This isn't about hate. It's been wrapped up, and the people of Palestine have been dehumanized to the point where we're all terrorists. We're not. That's a fact. We're great, loving, compassionate people with a culture, and it would be sad to see that a country like America can be as bold to make a statement and try to pass a bill that would ban Palestinians from coming in. If that's what we come to, it's the light for Palestinians in America is waning. And I think I'll leave you guys with that. You guys have a good
sir.
night.
And I know that there will be massive resistance to this.
Yeah.
And, hopefully as Americans, we could find ways to promote freedom more than promoting tried and tested and failed, recycled neocon boomer ideologies and policies that clearly don't work. It clearly continues divide and conquer. And, we as Americans, as younger Americans, it's our duty to find that peaceful way forward, and also get involved in the system as well, too. If y'all are watching this, go find ways to get involved in your local communities and local government. The change really comes from us. It's our time. It's our generation's time to start really moving and shaking. And we can essentially build this beautiful country into something even more beautiful. And that's just up to us. So we'll just end this off, actually. We'll just finish this off. Fadi, do you have any closing thoughts on the bill?
No, I think that this bill is more of like a Lindsey Graham type offshoot. You know, these idiots have to show how much of a neocon they can become. The race to the bottom of who can bootlick Israel the more and who's more extreme for the APAC. And I don't think it'll pass. And I think if it does pass, God forbid it does, there's going to be probably Supreme Court decisions. There's going to be a lot of backlash. People are going to get up. Look, the majority of America are not with Israel. Mostly it's the boomers that are still pro-Israel. As you've seen the polls come out, you go down to Generation Z, it goes down to 27%. And in the middle, it's kind of like you can see the tipping of the scales. So, you know, I would just say that I don't think it's going to pass. I think that people should call their local congressman and just make a fuss about it. Remember, congressmen don't get a lot of phone calls. So to them, there's like an indicator. If they get 5 calls, 6 calls, 10 calls a day, they assume that that's a big deal. That means there's a lot of people that are not on board. So just flood the phones for a little while. And I want to say, just especially for Jacob, man, just, you know, my prayers and the thoughts are with your family. And I hope that they're safe. And I hope that they triumph. And, you know, God bless the people of Palestine. And I believe in a free Palestine. I believe in a one-state solution. That's just my own bias. And I think it is a rightful solution. But more than anything, I just pray for the safety of the people in Gaza. And hopefully God liberates them and ends this carnage and, you know, keeps your family safe as well. So that's about it. I would just say, everybody, if you like to check out some of our content, go to networkradio.us. We are only producing 2 shows. Anarcho, which I host. I go in long details and break down a lot of stuff, give you guys files, documents, videos, pictures, links. And then the other show that we produce is called Two Mics. Shout out to the Two Mics, Colonel Mike. And then one of the co-hosts of that is Dr. Michael Scheuer, who was the chief of the Bin Laden unit, 25 years CIA officer and operator, staunchly anti-Israeli. Tell you all the things that they do, including subvert our military intelligence to China. You know, check out their shows. We've had Ron Paul on. We've had a lot of cool people on. So that's pretty much it for now, man. God bless you. And Amir, thank you for putting this together. Jacob, it's fantastic to meet you. And I look forward to connecting with you also in the future.
Yeah. Likewise, my friend. Godspeed.
Awesome. So actually, I just want to finish this off. We just started getting some pretty fiery comments. So I just wanted to read this real quick before we hop off. We got a Metal Mama Sue on Rumble says, "I'm ashamed at these so-called leaders in the U.S. Many of us are heartbroken about the slaughter of Palestinians. We want them to be free. Zionism is evil." And she continues and says, "The indoctrination in the U.S. is nuts. Truly, these Zionist neocons disgust me. I know many of my generation, end of the boomers, beginning of Gen X. We know the truth. Free Palestine and stop killing them. Not in my name. It's awful to witness." Thank you for your comment, Metal Mama Sue. And if you're watching this right now, please like this video, comment, let me know what you thought about this video, and also share it with your friends and family. And if you haven't done so yet, check out speckerhealth.com and you can get yourself the highest quality health products and take the new Specker Health Assessment, and also check out the new Specker Health Specker Library at speckerhealth.com, where you can read scientific studies with ingredients, lifestyle, health, and I write summaries of scientific studies so that you can better understand the science of these topics and reclaim your health. All right, speaking of health, go make sure to make your health a priority. And when you're going deep into these political topics, it takes a toll on your health. So make sure you are focusing on being as healthy as possible before you get into the political trenches to fight the battle for freedom, because you want to be a tip-top shape and at your best to succeed in the battle for freedom. All right, I love you all. We'll see you soon. Streaming here multiple times a week. Peace and love.